So, what's the deal with discipline and motivation, and how can we leverage them and use them to not only support, but to propel us in the direction of our goals and really becoming who we want to be? That's the question we're going to ask and answer in this video. So, on the internet, there's a lot of voices who share opinions about discipline and motivation. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's almost like there's like a conflict. There's like almost like a paradox. Like there's a conflict with motivation and discipline. And I see this as motivation almost being like taboo or weak, in the sense that if I need motivation to get a job done, like that says something poorly or negatively about me. So we like deny the need for motivation, but in doing that, I think we deny some reality as well. Some things that we don't actually have a say in, just with the way we're built, the way our brain is built, the way our nervous system functions. There's a limit to what we can actually deny. So this whole notion of like replacing motivation with discipline has sort of propelled discipline to the top of the hierarchy of the things you need in pursuit of your goals. Almost like the only thing you need is discipline. And so there's this conflict. And I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink, personally and professionally. Dude's I generally agree with a lot of the stuff that Jocko says, but I disagree with how discipline and motivation are often in this conflict, in this battle. I don't see them as a zero-sum game. I do see where the tendencies to maybe fall to this notion of motivation can be problematic for people who want to pursue a goal. But I also see where not fully understanding the mechanisms of motivation or discipline turning into punishment, especially in the fitness and, athletic realm, there's a slippery slope to play there. So I think when motivation and discipline are fighting each other, both lose. And I think it's an unnecessary fight. The paradox bit is, on the one hand, it's like, hey, you don't need motivation. All you need is discipline. But then there's this other camp that's like, motivation is everything. And where that camp comes from is sort of the Simon Sinek popularized this with start with why. You got to start with why. The 5 whys. Why. And I'm obviously a fan of understanding why you're doing something, having some intention. Nietzsche. People quote Nietzsche all the time as if his words were gospel. He has a famous quote that says, he who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. So do these speak to motivation or discipline? Start with why, know your why, drill down. It's all about your why. Have a why so you can bear the how. What do these things have to say about discipline? Because that sounds like motivation to me. So one of the things is what discipline teaches us about motivation is generally summed up as motivation is an unreliable fuel source. You can't rely on it to get the job done. You can't rely on motivation to take action. Okay. That's what discipline teaches us about motivation. I'm curious, and what I hope to answer in this video, is what can motivation teach us about discipline? So, let's look at the anatomy of motivation. Let's start with motivation. And there's like two different camps, not camps, but there's two different ways we can conceptualize motivation. The one is going to be like the logical, the rational, the conceptual, maybe the intellectual, okay, the ethereal of motivation is your why. That's your intention. It's your reason for doing anything. If we were to just say motivation is the reason that you do anything. Now, whether you're aware of that reason is where like the beautiful power of awareness comes in. But as it stands alone, motivation is why you do something. The reason why you do something. But the logical realm lacks the energetic quality of motivation. And everybody has been motivated. We all know there's an energetic quality to motivation, right? There is an energy. When you're motivated, you are like energized. So what's that all about? Is that bad? Is that a wrong thing? The energetic quality of motivation is not the logical or the rational or having like a really strong reason. No, the energetic quality of motivation is actually the neurochemical composition of motivation. And the neurochemical composition of motivation is dopamine. Another like thing that we hear so much about. Huberman talks all about it. There's books written about it. And unfortunately, the way in which we speak about dopamine, especially now, is like in regard to negative things. Because the things that act on our dopamine, or maybe we get sort of addicted to and we need detoxes from, are things like social media, drugs, alcohol, vices, addictions, shitty food. All of these things that we're chasing, these dopamine highs. And so dopamine kind of almost gets lumped into this camp along with motivation of like, stay away, you don't need it. It's bad. If you're relying on it, it's bad. And again, like that's a very simplistic, reductionist, inaccurate view of how we navigate through life. You know, dopamine is not evil. It doesn't exist to imprison us. Its function is to drive life. Its function is to seek and drive and seek life-supporting activities. Think about food, thirst, reproduction, shelter as like the basic sort of physiological needs. Now, it's not just that, but it doesn't exist to imprison us. Its function is to drive life, not a vice. Dopamine was not created to get us addicted to things that kill us. Why would we have that, right? At the neurological level, the neurochemical level, the energetic quality of motivation, dopamine, very simply, is a molecule of movement. Dopamine is a molecule of movement. You hear about like getting these dopamine hits, which kind of leads it to say, hey, the thing that we did, let's say you check your phone and, you know, whatever, pen, not phone. You check your phone, you check your Instagram, you check your email, you check your da-da-da-da-da, and it's like the checking the thing that gives you the dopamine hit. But that's actually not entirely true. It's better to think about dopamine as the anticipation of the thing, not just the acquisition of the thing. So it's not just what you get, it's what you anticipate as the more influential element of dopamine. So the dopamine cycle, you can read a lot of books about it, you can listen to hours and hours and podcasts on it and stuff like that. For me to understand it in like simple terms, because I'm not a neuroscientist, I don't study this stuff in a lab and I've read a lot about it, but still it's like break it down, make it simple. There's like 4 Ds to the dopamine process. All right. And what the dopamine process is this molecule of movement nested under what the heck is motivation beyond just why, the energetic quality. It's where we look at, well, what's happening with dopamine? So The first D is desire. Within our environment, either external or internal, there is a cue for a desire, for like anything, something we want. What this does is it increases dopamine, all right? This increase of dopamine, the trajectory of it, the pitch of it matters, all right? So we have this desire, we have this cue, dopamine increases at a varying kind of steepness, if you will. And then we move into the second D, which we realize we don't have the thing we desire. So desire increases dopamine, then we don't have it. Recognizing we don't have the thing could be thought of almost like living in scarcity or lacking, right? Not having is lacking. There's like an unfulfillment there. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit trail yet because I'll get lost. But if you think about like just right away, so our dopamine rises when we want something we don't have. Okay, interesting. Think about that. Put that aside. You could say maybe there's like an anti-gratitude, an anti-appreciation element to it, but that can get a little flighty. So staying with me, dopamine increases because of a desire. We recognize we don't have it. And then there's a drop, third D, drop in dopamine. The drop in dopamine is at the same kind of like angle. I'll draw this out in a second, but it's at the same kind of angle that it increased. And that's important because the intensity of the fluctuation is some of what adds to the energetic experience of motivation, of dopamine. The longer you don't have it, the longer we don't have the thing we desire, the thing that increased our dopamine, the further below our like baseline sort of level of dopamine available within the brain, our dopamine levels drop. The further below that, the deeper the drop, the more painful the experience that is. Not like going to make any sort of, niceties about it. It's painful to yearn for something. Okay. Of course, what that something is matters. But the longer we go without it and the more painful we have it, we finally move into the fourth D, which is, damn it, I need the thing. That fourth D is damn it. And when we reach that damn it, like you know what that's like to be like, I don't care, enough. Like I need to get what it is that I desire. And again, this is not just related to something negative. Not at all. There's a movement quality with that. That damn it is the energetic invitation, not even an invitation, the push to go and find and pursue what it is that you desire. Go. That's the movement element of dopamine. That's the movement element of motivation. The stronger the damn it, the stronger the pain of not having it, the stronger the motivation, the stronger the desire to pursue now. The pursuit part is a bit tricky because, as you'll see in a second, what are we really pursuing? Are we pursuing the desire? Well, it turns out not necessarily. What we're really pursuing is not the thing itself, but the relief of the pain of not having the thing. So, let me just draw this out real quick. We're at this base layer of dopamine, and we have a desire, first D, okay? Shoots up, okay? We kind of peak out wherever we have it, and then we realize, that's the first D, we realize we don't have it at that peak. And then at the same rate that we went up, there's the drop. All right. drop. Okay. That drop, Andrew Huberman and all this stuff he talked about, he refers to that as the trough. Okay. And that's painful down there in this trough. And that's where we have this like damn it experience. All right. And what the damn it experience does is it motivates us and it pushes us to pursue and go get the thing. All right. So during the pursuit, all right, so that's kind of like where we're at, and then we're going to go get the thing. All right, we'll just say generally this is where we're going to leave off on this terrible drawing of mine, but you get it. So now we are pursuing. Okay. During the pursuit, in between the want and the get, dopamine rises and falls based upon our chances of successfully getting what we desire. All right. Or ameliorating the pain. Scanning our environment to learn the path to reward is how we can think about like the path of motivation, the path of dopamine. Any obstacles in the way, how do we navigate them? In the addiction space, this is where we see, like addiction-seeking tendencies or addiction-seeking behaviors. This is also where we see, hey, from recovery communities, people, places, and things, man, that is an environment that is sending you more of these cues, but also if you're really having that sort of urge and that impulse to ameliorate the pain, which is what it is when the dopamine levels are below baseline, there's clues and there's things in the environment that will provide that relief. Either way, when we then finally get the thing, it actually doesn't stop there. The relief of not having and getting is not where it ends. And what this moves us into is something called the reward prediction error. And what that is like just a simple math equation. All right. It is reality minus expectation that gives us a value. So the value is either going to be positive or negative based upon our expectation of how awesome this thing was going to be, of how painful we were going to be relieved. So what happens is we have like kind of generally speaking, like two different things here. We do it, we have the thing. If what we get, the thing we desired, is greater than what we expected, we have an increase in dopamine, okay? And that might be like a peak, okay? It might lead to another peak, but essentially it's this increase in dopamine, right? This is kind of what happened up to date, and then boom, we're here. If what we got, if reality was less than, or if our expectations were more than reality, there's a negative value with that. And what that may do is drop again the dopamine. Might drop the levels. So we're sort of always on this tidal wave, this up and this down of dopamine, and it makes us wonder, with this, like, well, our expectations, our pain and our expectations, how powerful those are. So what about discipline? What about discipline? How does discipline kind of factor into this? Right? Well, what is discipline? Generally speaking, discipline is doing something regardless of how you feel or the conditions that you're in. Right? The action is going to happen and nothing else matters or gets a vote, right? These kind of, ironically enough, motivational kind of ethos. Discipline is objective. It's like 1 or 0, pass or fail, did or didn't do. There's sometimes there's like a cut and dry thing with discipline and the action. When I think about discipline, I think about it as an objective action blocking a subjective experience of inaction. Discipline is like a subjective action blocking the subjective experience for inaction. If you're disciplined, it's like subjective experience, don't take it. No, fuck that. I'm going to do it. All right. But there's something deeper to discipline. There's something deeper. And there is a subjective experience with being disciplined. It feels a certain way. Discipline feels a certain way. And it should feel good. It should feel good, hopefully, because there's a positive reward prediction value there. What we got was greater than what we maybe expected. So what can motivation or dopamine teach us about discipline? Can motivation, can dopamine teach us how to be disciplined? That's an important question. Can dopamine, can motivation actually teach us how to be disciplined? We all recognize, hey, discipline's super important. Well, and we have this thing in the brain with the dopamine systems that are working regardless. How can we use them together? Well, let's recall. Dopamine is the molecule of motivation triggered by the desire for something we don't have that moves us to pursue and seek this desire-fueled path because, damn it, the pain of not having what we desire is too much to bear. That's sort of the experience of motivation and dopamine. Discipline, then, right? Really, like discipline, if we really think about it, it's the action we take to avoid or ameliorate the pain of not being who we are or who we can become. Do you ever notice how disciplined people are always working on being better at something? Now, it might not be better at being a human being. It might be better at their craft. It might be better at their sport. They're disciplined. They're out there, 11 hours a day training. They're in the office. They're doing all this stuff. They're always working to become better. There's something they're not yet. And they're doing the things to be better or what they think is going to make them better, regardless of how they feel. The pain of not being who we can be, which is entirely unknown, ultimately, is motivating. Discipline, an objective action blocking a subjective experience of inaction, or in other words, what we do to avoid the pain of being who we think we can be but we're not, is the pain of that, the pain associated with not being who we are, is the motivation. That's the pain. That's the damn it. That's down here. So discipline and motivation work together. It's not discipline or motivation. It's not discipline versus motivation. It's discipline with motivation. It's not a zero-sum game. Discipline and motivation, both together, connected, pave the path to being who we can be, who we maybe deep down know we have the possibility and the potential to be, but we just aren't yet. So, how do we develop this? That is obviously like an individual question. But when we look at what are the surges in desire in our life? What is it that we perceive we do not have? How long do we go without that? A scarcity versus an abundance thing. How painful is it when we don't have the thing we desire? And how much are we expecting this thing to bring to us? So I hope we can look at both discipline and motivation logically and neurologically to bring the two together to really orient us to be who we want to be. And there's going to be pain associated with that. But self-inflicted punishment, which can sometimes be sort of the poster child for discipline, doesn't seem to me to be a viable option to actually solve the problem, which is we want to be and get and become and have this positive experience with the things we're pursuing. That's how I think we can move forward with discipline and motivation. I hope you found this video helpful. It's certainly not the end-all be-all. It's a conversation to have. If you have questions, go ahead, drop them in the comments. I'd love to know how this video went for you, if you enjoyed it. And subscribe and whatever and all of that stuff. Obviously, this is a journey, and I hope you take this and action it in pursuit of your own journey. My name is Bill Anthes. I'm the Athlete's Therapist. Thanks for watching.